Hello, I'm Jack Rickard with EVTV. This is my compadre and consigliere, El Breno Noto.
Hey, it's good to be here.
It's Friday, Brain.
It is Friday. I do have to ask you, though, your wife, something, ex-wife?
My ex-wife?
Ex-wife, something you need to confess or talk about with our viewers.
I don't want to talk about that, but I will.
All right.
I think it's just despicable that you would start an episode of EVTV.
I finally got him.
By
bringing up an ex-wife?
An ex-wife on international television. And how dare you? It's a despicable act, and when elected president, I'll make sure that never happens again.
But for right now,
outlaw ex-wives worldwide.
There you go. We'll have to make you supreme leader.
And for what ex-wives remain, they'll be told to sit down and shut up.
That's right. Vote them off the island.
Newt Gingrich. Actually, I am probably going to back Stephen Colbert.
Oh, yeah, he's running in South Carolina.
Herman King team to run for the president of the United States of South Carolina.
Yeah, they haven't left much choice.
But I did find Newt, he's having a good week.
Yes, he is. Yeah, Newt's not doing too bad. He's
actually
happy.
A really bright guy, and but it was amazing to watch the media twist and turn over that. And so they'll take anything and twist it completely. His wife found out that he was running around with another gal.
Yes.
And he said, yeah, I am. And I'm going to continue.
Years ago, too, like in 99, I think.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm going to continue. And she's like, well, we've been married an awful long time. Well, okay. We can stay married if you want. Whatever you want to do. I'm just telling you, I'm going to still see her. Well, then she wanted a divorce.
Oh, okay.
Now, she has cast that as he was suggesting an open marriage.
That's what I did hear. Yeah, it was pretty...
He was suggesting nothing.
He was suggesting just keep going.
He was busted, and he's like, yeah, and I'm going to keep seeing her. I don't know anybody that talks that way.
Never happens like that. Yeah. Oy vey, huh?
The end-of-year sales figures are in.
Oh, okay.
The Volt had one of its best months in December. 1,529 volts were sold, as opposed to 954 Leafs. So this goes back and forth. The year-end totals was 7,671 volts, which we parodied last year as being short of their many times revised, now target in arrears of 10,000.
That's right, 10,000 now, yeah.
The Leaf sold 9,674, and as of the Detroit Auto Show, they claim they have reached 10,000.
That's what I read, yeah, that now there's 10,000, yes.
And so there's 17,345 sold in 2011.
Okay.
There's a half a dozen things here to put this in perspective. One, we predicted it. Before 2011 started, at the end of 2010, I predicted this exact outcome. Second, the Volt isn't an electric car.
No, and it doesn't qualify for...
If you put gasoline in your car, it's not an electric car.
Yeah.
It's a hybrid. But let's put that in perspective. In the year 2000, the first year of the hybrid, how many hybrids do you think we sold last year in the U.S.?
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know.
Just over 2 million.
Okay.
The hybrid was introduced in, this time.
Yeah, right.
Gas electric hybrid. In the year 2000, that's the first year, the Honda Insight and Toyota Prius.
Oh, okay.
Prius.
Yeah, Prius. Yeah,
Prius were offered in the U.S. Do you know how many they sold that year?
No, I don't.
9,350.
Really?
Yeah, they were not a big hit.
Yeah, they were not. No.
But 11 years later, they're selling 2 million of them a year. Now, is that the majority of cars? No, but it's a pretty significant number. In a U.S. sale this year, it probably will top 13 million. We have done 15 million years, but I think 2012 come in about 13 million. maybe a little better. So that's a significant niche.
That is, yeah.
2 million cars.
Yeah, no, they're making a
11
dent.
years later, yeah. And this is kind of what I've been preaching on the EV thing. Don't expect Nissan to come out and sell 150,000 the first year, which is the number they bandied about, or 110,000 in the case of Chevrolet. It was in an official press release, guys. I'm not making these numbers up. This is what these people set as targets when they started this year.
And then they bumped it up to 60,000.
Then they increased it to 60,000, and ultimately all the way up to 10,000, which they didn't reach.
Stratospheric.
It's okay. It's going to take, what did I say, 10 or 12 or 14 years to get there from here by simply people becoming familiar with the advantages of it. I think I still feel giddy having come out of the garage with a car that doesn't use gasoline. It goes as fast as I want to go and goes anywhere I want to go.
Yeah, no, that's quite an accomplishment.
And it's news, and it's about these batteries, by the way. It's not the
That's
car.
really it,
We can make the car for 100 years. It's the batteries.
It's the batteries, yeah.
That made it different.
Yeah, that changed the whole
I'm not hauling
game.
1,200 pounds of batteries, by the way.
Yeah, the last 2 years, yeah.
It's 400 or 500 pounds of batteries, which is plenty in a car.
Yes,
but it's not a half a ton, and ergo, therein lies the tale. It becomes viable. I can drive 100 miles in a car that does have 450, 500 pounds of batteries in it, but I'm 275.
He's half a battery pack.
I'm half a battery pack. And so it's you know, and I feel like and so I come out and tell everybody about this, and they're like, yes, but does the cigarette lighter work? It doesn't use gasoline.
That's right.
Clown.
Yeah, I know.
But
it does, actually.
Yes, but what about range anxiety? Range anxiety. What range anxiety? Where are you going?
The only people that are anxious about range are people who don't have electric cars.
Well, what do you do if you're stuck in a snowstorm?
Leave the heater on?
What are you talking about? Well, if you're stuck in traffic, you'll gradually run the battery down. No, I won't. It doesn't use any battery.
It doesn't use any battery when you're stopped.
Well, when you're idling. I'm not idling.
Most electric cars don't idle.
What are you talking about? Right. And so I've been in a 3-year conversation that's nonsense with people that do not know, understand, or have experienced electric cars. And I have had to develop some patience in carrying the message. I bring you great tidings of great news.
That's right, tidings of joy.
Pay attention. I don't use gasoline. I don't go to gas stations.
That's right.
It's cool. It's quiet. I'm cool.
Yeah, people love
You're not.
Yeah. Yeah, what do we talk about? You're signaling your concern for the environment, even if you're not.
Right. I don't blow anything out the back end of the car unless I've been in
fried chicken.
Yeah, fried chicken again. What do you got?
Let's see. Well, you know, and you were just talking a little bit about that. I mean, people are now apparently Fox News did a little something on electric car parking. Is it a perk or a privilege?
Well, that's it all depends on whether it's a right or a obligation.
That's right. But there's a whole little thing with people carving out their opinions, obviously on you know, should some of these parking spaces are, you know, closer even than the handicap parking spaces.
Well, don't get it started on HOV lanes.
Yeah, are electric people handicapped or something? Right. You know, what mentally handicapped? But you know, so now everybody's, you know, having to defend that. Well, you know, it's sometimes the electric cord just has to be closer or things like that. Anyway, the message is don't worry about it, guys. If they're calling you clowns or geeks, just build your electric car and park wherever they'll let you. And if it's up front, good for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's okay.
That's my wife's approach. Park wherever you want to, pay the ticket later.
That's right, pay the ticket. That's right.
Have Jack pay the ticket.
That's right. And if you're not going back, don't worry about it. Right. I guess the Active E this week is taking their. You can submit your information to maybe get one of 700 of them, I guess.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I guess the website is up, and they are giving. So I guess that they're going to do the same kind of vetting process, I suppose, where you live, and I don't know. I haven't been on the site. I went to the site just to see it, but it is up.
Don't know, don't care. What I want to know is if anybody does know, There was Tom Mahoney out on the East Coast. We actually talked to him in a show some time ago. He was the guy doing 20,000 miles a year in a Mini E.
Yeah.
Okay, so you give it back to BMW. There's like 500 of them. Where did they go?
Yeah, where's all the stuff?
They have batteries in them, they have motors in them, they have controllers in them, everything.
Yeah. Yeah, what are they going to do with it all?
Where did it go?
Yeah, I mean, there should be a few hundred, what was that, AC propulsion in there?
Mm-hmm. Had AC propulsion, had
should be a nice
batteries.
set,
I love Mini Coopers. Where did the Mini E's go?
Yeah, and I'm going to ask them next week, actually, week after next. I'm going to see AC propulsion. Maybe they'll know.
Well, maybe they'll know.
maybe
AC propulsion got them all back.
Yeah, they got them. I don't know. You know, and this just kind of points to the fact that we are still out there, you know, early in the, you know, Tennessee had provided, you know, a few $1 million of rebates, you know, for the cars. I think maybe 2,500. I can't remember what it was, but there's about $1.9 million of it still left over.
Nobody applied. Nobody for
applied.
Half of it.
Yeah, right. And that's, you know, it's okay. It's still there, I guess. It sounds like they're still doing it, but you know, I guess eventually the Leaf is going to be manufactured. What, next year? I guess they're going to move it into Smyrna, I guess, to where they have the have the plant. So maybe there'll be more in Tennessee. You know, and this kind of goes with the adoption thing, and I'm not quite sure if this is good, bad, or indifferent, but, you know, they're saying that the way to get EVs out there for the general public may be to see people to have trucks, to have some commercial vehicles out there, and that may push things along. You know, this is coming from, oh gosh, Mark Aubrey of the Electrification Leadership Council. So I don't know. That's what they're pushing.
Mark Aubrey of the Electrification Leadership Council.
Yeah.
Do you know where I first heard this story?
No.
About 1915, that was kind of the same story.
That was the same.
That electric vehicles could at least serve as local delivery trucks and would persist there for some time. And they did.
Yeah, they did.
They make good local delivery trucks. This theme keeps coming up. No, they make good cars. They make good sports cars.
They are fun to drive. That's right.
Nissan, by the way, like I say, at Detroit Auto Show, they've been starting to follow the Volkswagen concept of throwing a new vehicle up against
right.
the
We showed them
wall
last week. Yeah, the
week.
Bugster. Yeah, the e-Bugster.
Take a look at this one. I like the name of it, for one thing. It's the ENV.
The ENV.
Like
the ENV, yes.
200. And it's kind of like our little, when I was stationed in Yokosuka, Japan in the 70s, all over Japan they had these little bitty vans running around.
Yeah.
And I said at the time, man, when those hit the States, they will take over everything. They never hit the States. Our Vantage
right, our
van
Vantage is one of those vans like that.
It's like that, but that's a little Chinese version.
Yeah.
But Nissan, Toyota, everybody had these little vans in Japan. And I still think if they ever get going here in the States, everybody will go crazy for these things because they're just like super handy, super economical.
Small, get around,
They park easy. They're just cool little vehicles, particularly for in town. But this ENV 200, they are characterizing as the ugliest vehicle on the planet.
Well,
it's boxy.
I wouldn't call it cute.
I would. I think it is. I like that kind of little shape. It's cool. What else you got?
Well, this really doesn't have anything to do with the electric vehicles, but it did with the internet. Actually, you know, Wikipedia last week did shut down because of the SOPA, which is, you know, it's supposed to stop pirated, you know, music and video and things like that. It's fairly loose. I didn't see, you know, a lot of specificity. It was really made, I guess, for sites that are out of the country, but I suppose it could have.
That is made vague to confuse you. Let me tell you what SOPA and all this is. These are big companies wanting the government to assure them of cash flow.
Right, these are content guys.
By enacting laws that make it easy for them to extract ducats from your
From
pocket.
Everybody, right, exactly.
And all you have to do is sacrifice the entire freedom of speech on the internet, and they can have
and it'll
that.
be happy, everybody.
And that'll protect their copyright.
Right, there's just copyright
to their music or something. It's an atrocity. Anybody in Congress that votes for that should be turned out for treason.
Yeah, if not,
and
something else.
I
That's
think
right.
Wikipedia and Google didn't do enough. I think they should have shut down the internet.
Just shut the internet,
this has to be stopped. And it's again just another case of one of these big lobby outfits.
Right, big money, yeah, big influence in
going
DC.
to Congress and asking them to pass a law giving them your money.
Yeah, that's right.
And this one on a worldwide basis.
On a worldwide basis, absolutely.
It's an atrocity.
Now what?
It's an atrocity that it can even be proposed.
It's even proposed, and I think
these people are allowed to present such ridiculous, self-serving crap, and it is thinly disguised with every kind of thing to make you think it's innocuous and nothing, and doesn't really amount to anything. It's like babies and for the good of apple pie, national patriotism, for better roads, and for the flag and beautiful sunsets past
just past
so
this.
we can jail people for not sending us our money.
That's right. Yeah,
It's
craziness.
It's a sign of our times. It's just wacko.
Yeah, and the good news is that actually between what Wikipedia did and people contacting their congresspeople, I did send a quick, just in a line, the subject line, I oppose SOPA and PIPA, and apparently they are going to take a look at it. They're going to
put it off for a month and hope nobody's looking.
Nobody's looking. Well, yeah, hopefully in February. So in February, you guys have some time to contact your senators and congresspeople and let them know that this, because we are on a roll and this is not good, and
this sort of thing will creep in an inch at a time.
Right. They know they couldn't get it all at once.
Your internet is unusable, and you're not allowed to know anything without paying somebody cash.
Yeah, exactly. So. And we didn't spend all that time doing that magazine and playing with the internet for years, so you guys could have one.
I have sent several $100s to Wikipedia over the years, but it wasn't because they demanded it.
Right.
It was voluntary.
They're asking for donations. Absolutely.
I like Wikipedia. I use it, and so I send them a few ducats now and again. But it's the whole open source thing is somewhat problematical, but I like Wikipedia, and so I've supported it.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to.
Right, didn't have to.
They didn't make me
It's just
by
because they did a
law.
nice job and it's vetted well. Yeah, it's a very nice project. But that's it from the world of EV news and my little soapbox about SOPA and PIPA.
Well, let's talk industry gossip then.
Okay.
What was it that we're not supposed to tell anybody about George Hamster and Netgain and his OEM thing with about Brazilian Motors?
Oh yeah, he was doing an OEM deal and he ended up with, I believe it fell through. I don't know which OEM, but he has 100.
He still thinks he likes OEMs, but he has how many?
He has 100 motors. Something that they stiffed him for. They stiffed him for 100 motors, but George with no aux shaft. Yeah.
Guess what he's doing?
What's he doing?
He's raffling them off.
Oh, that's what he was running by.
Now, this is a secret deal that I'm not supposed to tell you about, I think. And it's only open to his dealers.
Oh, really?
But they can send him $100, and he'll sell 20 chances on a motor for $100
okay,
piece.
for $100 a piece, and somebody gets one at the end
and
for
one of them
$100.
gets drawn and gets the motor.
Oh, jeez. You gotta love that.
Now, that's only open to dealers. It's kind of an internal raffle. But if you know a dealer
He might be able to
and want to put down
want to sponsor $100.
a C note on a possible motor,
That's right.
why would your dealer tell you no?
Yeah.
All he's got to do is pass it on.
Yeah, you take your $100 and it's not refundable. Whatever happens, happens. That's pretty good.
So that's,
I love George.
But yeah, I do too. He's just a prince, and he really believes in the movement and the mission, and we're going to take over the world, and everybody's going to drive electric cars, or me and George will just wind up laid out on the sidewalk, cold, stiff body, being run over by
gas cars.
That's the deal, baby.
Yeah. Well, and the price of gas, I mean, it's artificially low right now. I mean, we're getting decent gas mileage. It's all gonna something's going to happen. It's going to tip.
But he's been OEM'd. He's been trying to tell me that
I think
OEMs
so.
are really fun.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're fun as long as they're buying hundreds of stuff.
Yeah, when they stiff you
And then
for
when they
100.
stiff you, they're not so much fun, George. That's what I've been telling you. It's better to have lots of little ribs and drabs than to have this one big spigot that then keeps yanking you around.
Yeah.
And that's all the factories up and down the Mississippi River. That's what it's about.
Yeah, yeah, they get you to dance. Walmart.
It's just a friend of mine actually he inherited a company from his father and just shut it down. He said that he can make better money not running it.
Oh, was that the plastics guy that came in? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was an amazing story.
You know, like a Rubbermaid, the OEM.
Yeah, sure.
Was like paying this.
It was right here in
guy,
town. Yeah.
You know, 90 days late in taking a cash discount. And he called him on the phone and said, "Hey, this is 90 days late and you're taking a cash discount. How does that work?" And they said, "Well, it works pretty good.
Works for
That's
us."
what we're doing. Now, if you have any problem with that, we'll just take our business to somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, you get.
And he was such a big percentage of his business that he couldn't
He
do
just,
anything.
he just took the deal.
So he sold off the equipment, laid off all the employees. You want to know where your jobs are going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's disbanded the company. It's,
Just shut it down.
And he can still do business. He just doesn't need a plant.
He actually took his contracts and sold them off
Yeah,
to his
yeah,
competition.
just parcel them off.
And he takes a little cut of them. He can make more
Yeah,
money.
like a
than
broker,
running-
be a broker.
running the company.
Yeah. Man.
It's incredible. People do not understand how business works these days, and it is changing. And it's not just an economic slump, guys. It's the world is changing, and if you don't get with it, you're gonna be sitting there, literally with no work and no income.
Yeah.
It's you gotta, come up with a thing. I think there'll be a lot of work in electric cars and in solar in the future, but you need to get in there and learn how to do it.
Chinese solar panel dumping.
Ebnetics, what do we know? Sebastian Bourgeois is driving me crazy.
Is he?
I'm actually going to lose it. They've got secret stuff, and he won't tell me what it is. Now, I don't mind him having secret stuff, but I should know what the secret
We
is.
want to know what the hell it is.
Come
on, Seb, let us know.
Do you to have a secret if somebody doesn't know what it is? What kind of secret is that?
And then how are we going to be able to tell everybody the secrets?
That's right.
Oh, and then it won't be a secret.
It won't be a secret at all. I have been on to them to do a charger. They back-burnered the charger to do a whole new family.
New family?
It's a whole new family of products.
He's going to keep his other wife too?
Now, I told you about bringing that up in a presidential EVTV television show.
Oops,
That's
I couldn't help
absolutely
myself.
despicable.
I couldn't help myself.
And you should be ashamed of yourself and of CNN.
I should, but I'm not.
Is he good or what?
That's right. You should be ashamed of yourself.
So, it's let me see. What are the clues? It's a whole new family of products.
Okay.
They'll only be able to do it if they're as smart as they think they are. So it's a stretch. This is non-trivial and not easy.
Okay.
They're going to back burner the charger thing.
Okay. All right.
And it's, of course, not their Shiva, which we've been talking to them about putting it in the Escalade. The Shiva has been very well received in the, among the 5 or 6 people.
He's got a few of them out there now, I think, right?
He's built, but they're kind of, Ron Adamowicz and the drag racing crew and everything. This is really a 2 megawatt.
I know.
Device.
It's a little power plant out there.
It has as many IGBTs in it as 8 of the Soliton Juniors. They have increased the price from $7,500 to $9,500, which I think is off the screen. And that's one of the debates about using the Shiva and the Escalade is, how can I do this with a device that nobody can afford? And he's like, Jack, you're doing a Cadillac Escalade. Who can afford it anyway?
Who can afford it to do that project?
I can't even afford it. It's a $160,000 project. I can't even afford the thing. So, pert taken, Seb.
Yeah. All right. Touche.
Okay. But, so the Shiva is, it's got the same number of IGBTs as 8 Soliton Juniors.
Wow.
which they get a couple of grand for.
Yeah.
So that'd be like $16,000, and they're selling this thing for $9,500. But it does something like, 400 volts and 4,000 amps.
Wow. That's serious.
Derated to 3,000.
Okay.
I mean, it's.
Yes, you're talking a big, heavy vehicle, or for racing, even really.
But
more
that's not the
application.
secret stuff.
No,
the secret
that's
stuff
not it.
is a whole new family. It's backburnered the charger. It's not a DC to DC converter.
And it's going to take all their engineering and marketing know-how, huh, to bring this thing to fruition.
I would love it to be an AC inverter and motor.
Yeah.
I think that's a big reach.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, man, what are you doing, Seb?
But it sounds good. I suggest, he's got some solar companies. I suggested that he get back on this charger and do a fast charge station that was solar panels, batteries, and the IGBTs to do the DC fast charging.
It's like the whole thing in one kit.
One kit that you could buy and put down along the interstate or something for 50 grand or something. That you don't need three-phase power. You just solar charge batteries, and then cars pull in and charge off the batteries, and that would combine. He's got some solar assembly factories, basically make solar equipment.
I wonder if he's thinking about competing with Elon Musk and SpaceX. Maybe he's thinking about making, launch vehicles. Yeah, another planet. Yeah, he's.
No, I don't think so. But I'm dying to know what it is, Seb.
That's right. Somebody
remember, it's not a secret unless I know what it is.
And then it won't be a secret.
And then it won't be a secret. So there's that. Any other rumors? Let's see. What was going on in the industry?
No, I think that's kind of it. That's all I know. That's, beginning of the year, everybody's, there's auto shows going on, all kinds of stuff.
Our contest winner in 2011 was a young man named Brandon Hollinger from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He came out for the show. He's a saxophone player, and he is funny. He's the one that says, well, the stuff I take out of these old cars is incomprehensibly more complicated than the stuff I put in.
There you go.
He is starting, and it's now January, his conversion of a 1974 Austin FX. An Austin FX is also known as the London Taxi.
Yeah.
It's kind of an upscale car. When I was in London, I actually rode in some, and there are two on eBay right now for sale that are much later models. One of them's here in Missouri, but has some rust. But this is kind of a cool car. Full back seat with the bench and everything.
It's got little jump seats and everything.
Jump seats, suicide doors. It's really kind of an elegant ride.
Yeah, they are cool.
If you're, kind of limousining people around, and an electric version, of course. Let's take a look at what Brandon sent us.
Okay.
I'm lazy when I'm loving, I'm lazy when I play. I'm lazy with my girlfriend 1,000 times a day. I'm lazy when I'm speaking, I'm lazy when I walk. I'm lazy when I'm dancing, and I'm lazy when I talk. Open up my mouth, air comes rushing out. Nothing doing, not and never, how you like me now. Wouldn't it be mad, wouldn't it be fine? Lazy, lucky lady, dancing, loving all the time. Oh, Now some folks they got money and some folks' lives are sweet, and some folks make decisions and some folks clean the streets. Now imagine what it feels like, imagine how it sounds, if everything were perfect and everything works out. No tears are falling from my eyes, I'm keeping all the pain inside. Now don't you wanna live with me? I'm lazy as a man can be. Oh, wicked and I'm lazy. Oh, don't you wanna save me? Oh, I'm wicked and I'm lazy. Oh, don't you wanna save me? I'm lazy, 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 lazy. Don't you wanna save me?
Well, that's what we've been waiting for. We saw the first issue of opening everything up. All right, well, he said January he'd be working on the vehicle.
Well, apparently he is.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. That's
And
going to be a great conversion.
I have been kind of keeping my eyes open. Mavizin is they actually race motorcycles, but they had declared themselves the sole distributor of A123 cells to
Yeah.
the EV community.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And now they're upset because we're buying A123 cells from, you know, like Chin from China.
Well, we can't get them from anyone else. And we actually like the cells.
Last week, we showed a blender animation from a guy named Michael Murray
Yeah.
in New South Wales, Australia. Michael is a famous lawnmower.
Really?
He mows lawns,
He mows
all
lawns,
over
okay.
the north
All
coast
over
of
the-
New South Wales.
He's keeping Australia beautiful.
He is.
Single-handedly.
He's a landscaping machine,
There he
they
is.
say, a legend.
A legend, that's right.
And but he also likes to fool around with software and art and rendering things. And he did that little mock-up of a A123 module, which sort of put a picture to kind of a proposal that Kelso Manaya
Right, our friend from Portugal.
from Portugal.
Yeah.
I wish Kelso would send me a video of it. Of course, he's like an OEM.
Yeah, he's got that vehicle down
they've
there.
got this three-wheeled vehicle that I'd like to show people.
I know.
If they would ever get along far enough along
Where they
with
could
this
show
thing,
it, yeah.
Where they could show it. We'd show it to you.
Because the thing looks like a blast, but yeah, so we'd love to show you.
And he kind of came up with this and is interested in A123 cells as well. He's the battery guy at
Yeah.
this developer that's doing the tricycle in Lisbon. And it's not like a motorcycle, it's like a three-wheel car.
It is, yeah, yeah.
It's kind of cool. And I'm hoping they'll bring that to EVCon.
To this year, to the show. That'd be cool.
September, yes. In any event, he had proposed something similar, and that is a module. Basically, the disconnect is you use plastic threaded rods to connect everything, so you don't have conduction, from one thing to the next, but you have a little mechanical connection.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at what we've been doing in that area and what's involved in piecing one of these things together.
Okay.
NetGain Motors, home of the Warp, Transwarp, and Impulse motors, introduced the improved Warp 9 motor. The Warp 9 is a 9¼ diameter series wound DC motor with a double-ended shaft featuring 26 improvements for 2010. Externally, the terminal studs have been enlarged from 3/8 to 1/2 inch diameter. Bigger is better. On the inside, a larger commutator, new brush composition, and split brush design with heavier springs handle even higher voltages and currents than before. Our new fan increases airflow by almost 50% over typical paddle-style fans. And all this translates into improved performance. For even more performance or larger applications, take a look at NetGain's Warp 11 motor, an 11¾ diameter series wound DC motor for even greater torque and power. Since 2002, NetGain Motors has been leading the EV industry with precision, performance, and price. Visit us at go-ev.com. NetGain Motors, warp power to go.
I had promised to show you all a little bit about what we're doing with an A123 battery module this week. It's kind of an involved process, so we're going to go through it, but I confess I'm getting a little bit more into it. Mavison this week, Mavison had worked out some sort of a sweetheart deal with A123 to distribute the cells originally to motorcycle racers, but they've made it clear they can do it to all EV people. They had quoted me a price of $65 per cell, and now their published price list, that's up to $73 for a 20 amp hour LiFePO4 cell. That is absurd on the face of it if they were made on planet Zircon and imported by spaceship. However, we're getting them, and we recently got a shipment of 300 cells that are printed and made in USA from China. This is not really done in secret. I have written a letter to my Congresswoman, Joanne Emerson, here in the 10th District of Missouri, and she has notified the Department of Energy that there's something amiss when a company gets $249 million in public money to build a factory where they won't sell the cells to me at any price and promise 5,000 jobs in the state of Michigan. They've recently laid off 125 of their 900 workers, which doesn't even make sense. That would cost them $6 million a year to keep them. This company is out of control and are representing the very worst of United States corporate behavior. This is why regulations need to be enacted in a world that really doesn't need more regulation because of companies like this. In any event, we've gotten 300 of the cells now, 360 from China. The latest group were at $20, FOB China. That winds up about $25.60 by the time we pay the shipping, the import duties, and an absolutely inexplicable $131 fee to UPS for brokerage services. In any event, we have them here, and Mavison has put out a statement that A123 and they that these cells must be counterfeit, fraudulent, and are undoubtedly dangerous, inferior second cells. Now, they don't know anything about them, don't have any of them, but they have already declared them rejects and dangerous to use. This reminds me of the drug company that warned everyone not to use the counterfeit pills that were coming in over the border from Canada of their drug, and that it was dangerous to do so. Someone in the news media later pointed out that that company in Canada was under contract to produce them for the company. And we have pretty much an identical situation here, except you don't eat these battery cells. So I'm starting to get into this a little bit. These guys are over the top with the warnings and so forth. A A123 employee who declines to be named but was in email and said that these were either counterfeit or stolen. Now, if they haven't reported anything stolen, how do they know they're stolen? And didn't know about them. And counterfeit, why would they bother printing A123 on the cell and made in the USA? My Chinese source insists these actually come from the United States and are made here. I suspect not. I think A123 has failed to live up to some contractual terms in an agreement with a Chinese or Korean company that is making these cells and illegally printing made in the USA on the cells and shipping them to the States. And since A123 is not taking the number of cells that they had promised to, that this factory is backdooring them to anybody that'll pay cash. We'll pay. We get the cells in a box like this and taped up pretty nice, or pretty severely anyway. It takes a little unpacking to get them loose. They are marked on the box, lithium cells, if damaged, do not ship. And we simply cut them loose, and inside we have some plastic trays that appear to be the normal manner of shipping these cells. Every cell we've received has come in these plastic trays, 2 to a tray. Here we have a lot of tape and so forth we need to free. And eventually, I usually get it down to this sled of trays, which we want to carefully unstrap of the tape. Which holds it together. Here is a cell. It says it's made in USA by A123 Systems. It's marked A2 here, and we've received cells with different markings at different times. It has a serial number, and it matches the serial number tag on the negative tab of the cell. The negative tab of the cell is kind of a tinned copper, and the positive tab of the cell is a aluminum. These are not used cells. There is a guy on eBay who's selling both kinds of cells, but he's making some headway with some very cheap cells that have had the tabs clipped off of them. Now, those may indeed be some sort of seconds or rejects. Here, Brian Noto has developed for me the very high-tech, we call this trash can and crate lid form, is what we refer to that as, because the first thing we want to do is drill some holes in these cell tabs. And what I really want to do is punch them using a punch, a leather punch or something, a paper punch. But I need a 5/16 inch hole, and we just haven't found one yet. So he took a piece of porch decking, put me a little metal sleeve in here so it doesn't wear out, and I can just put this down and gently drill me a hole. through the tabs, through the holes here, and they're going to wind up in the same place on the tabs every time, kind of toward the outside edge, and big enough to take our 5/16 nylon 6/6 threaded rod. We're going to have to do 48 of these. And so I simply take the next cell, I peel off the serial number sticker. I'm not sure why that's on the tab itself, I guess to show that it's a new cell, because it wouldn't be a good idea to leave that on there. It's not going to help that tab conduct at all or make any kind of electrical connection. Again, Brian's got me a whole little form here, so I hold the cell in the same place. And we'll continue until we have 48 cells. They actually come, 12 or 16 to a pallet. But we'll make this a pile and show you the next step. We're back at the band saw that Nabil likes so well. This is our new shop box. I like it. This is a piece of 1.5 by 1.5 inch aluminum angle. That's a 1/4 inch thick. We're actually going to use this to make our terminals that will eventually be on our battery. Got this set to about 1 inch. We're going to turn it on. Adjust this up for about 1,000 feet per minute. And what we have here is 2 pieces that are thick enough to hold a thread and about the width of our tabs. But we're going to use them on our cell with a hole as close to the edge as we can get it on one side of 5/16 that our threaded rod will go through. We'll do another hole in the top and tap it for an M8 bolt. And so this will be the surface we will use as a terminal, and this will be the hole that we use for the threaded rod. And we'll need 2 of these for each module. This is another piece of aluminum stock. It is 3/4 of an inch wide by 1/4 thick, and these are going to be our spacers. We're going to put 48 cells in our module. I probably need 40 of these. We're going to use some 1/4 inch thick and some .090 and kind of mix it up. But nominally you'll need 48. I've got my saw here set to 1.75 inches. You don't get a whole lot of extra points for precision. We're going to run these on a buffer, on a wire wheel and grinder to kind of clean them up and polish them up later anyway. But nominally 1.75 inches long, 3/4 inches wide. a 1/4 inch thick. And you'll probably need about, 48 of them, give or take. Here I am at the drill press with our blanks. I've got 3 of them loaded into this form that Rod made me. That lets me drill 3 of them at a time. Again, this is not to precision, but we do want the holes to be nominally lined up with the holes we put in the tabs in the cells. There we go. Got a hole. They're pretty warm. If I take this and place it on a tab, I've got pretty good coverage of the tab with the spacer and the hole lined up, and the hole's about the same size. That's good. That's what we're after here. So that's how we make our 3/4 or our 1/4 inch spacers. Again, they're 1.75 inches long, 3/4 of an inch wide. I've got my terminals 1 inch wide and of 1.75, and my cells here. As we build our module, we are going to have trouble keeping everything straight with different size insulators and spacers and so forth. So what I do is also run off some .090 by 3/4 with the holes in them, just like our 1/4 inch stock. And I do it the same way in the same bandsaw. So I do them in the same way, with the same bandsaw and the same drill press, with the same 5/16 inch hole. It's all part of God's plan. We're back on the bandsaw again. This time I have a panel of 1/4 inch, what we call ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. This is got a very strong dielectric. It resists temperatures well. Reasonably fireproof. It's a great insulator, and we're going to make insulators for our module with this. I'm going to make them a little wider, maybe 0.9 inches or an inch wide, the same inch and 3/4 long, but we're going to put a 1/2 inch hole in them. And the reason for this is we want to fit these over the top of our nylon nuts that secure our spacers on the nylon threaded rod. So this will actually fit over the nuts, so we have to have a 1/2 inch hole drilled in these. I'm going to rip some off on the bandsaw here. And kind of turn the speed down on this stuff. And we'll do 300-400 feet per minute. And this. Okay, Let's set our same 1.75 inches we've been using here. So that gives us some insulating blanks. We're going to need one for every 4 cells out of 48, so about 12 of these for our module. If you notice, the saw's left a bunch of hair dangling on that high molecular weight polyethylene. We do a lot of stuff with a wire wheel on a grinder, and that'll just nick those right off, just as slick as a bean. And then we're going to cut a 1/2 inch hole in this, about the same place we've been cutting the 5/16 inch hole, and that will let us place this over the nut as we assemble the thing. I'm not going to show you how to drill a 1/2 inch hole. Do I need to do that, Brain?
No.
I didn't think so. All right, on to the next event. All righty, there's our last cell in this box. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 cells here. And now they have a hole kind of in the same place all the way through. I'm going to take a 1/4 inch, about a 2-inch bolt here, or screw, put a washer through it, and start threading it through all 16 of our negative tabs here. The idea is to tie all of them more or less together on this bolt. Let's put another washer. And a nut. Now, this bolt's not going to provide a great electrical connection between these particularly. We're going to tighten it down a little bit, but that's not the point. It'll provide enough of a connection. If we leave them for a day or two, they're going to be at the same voltage. And what we're getting ready to do here is basically zero balance our or bottom balance our cells before we assemble them into a module. Now, why is that important? The module we've decided to make is really a battery module. It's not going to be quite as modular as A123's. We think it'll be a little more durable. But one of the things we're going to give up is access to each individual cell. So before we do, we're going to run them all down to exactly the same 2.75 volts. And that takes a little bit of work, although we're getting better at it. But our first step is to kind of bolt them together to where they're electrically more or less connected. Now, this has not got to survive in a car. It's not particularly anything. It's just sort of connected through the bolt to where the cells, in handling them, will discharge into each other to where they're all pretty much the same state of charge, or same voltage in any event. Let's take this to the battery lab and I'll show you how we're hooking them up. Okay, here we are in the battery lab with our stack of raw A123 cells. I'm using a little Dale 250 watt resistor that's it's actually a 0.1 ohm resistor, and that'll draw on these cells about 35 amps. And I've actually got two of them in parallel to draw them down pretty quickly. These are 20 amp hour cells. They really measure about 19, but with a dozen of them together or 16 of them together, you have quite a bit. And so it takes some current to bleed these down. It also takes some time. We've had too many senior moments here in the lab where we've lost cells by me going off, getting involved in something else. I know what time to come back, but I get wrapped up in something else. Don't get back, come in, cells are dead. So we have turned to technology to be our friend. And I've gone to one of my favorite places. There's two places on the web that I really like for electronics. And one of them is a place called lightobject.com. The company's name is actually Annex Depot Inc. in Elk Grove, California. But they have a website, www.lightobject.com, and they do sell on eBay as well under the name Cold Fusion X, I believe. They have the neatest electronics on planet. They have every kind of little meter and measurement device. We've used their stuff in the past. Here's why you don't know more about them. They're not really Chinese. They're not even from on planet. And their documentation is from another world. It's indecipherable. And the way they design products is very common. You can see the same hand in all of them, and it is a truly twisted mind, I have to tell you. For example, this setup, this little jobber, it has different menus that you access by pressing a button and entering a password code, which you get from the documentation, which in this case is all of 2 sheets. For example, once you get this working to measure voltage, you find out it measures voltage all wrong. And you have to go in, enter the password 0036, pick up the code PVH, and change it from 500 to 10 at your full scale, which on this you can use 1 volt, 10 volts, 100 volts, 500 volts as your full scale measurement, and that's how you set that. If you don't do that, you just get a nonsense reading. So these are difficult to set up. The documentation is almost impossible, but when you puzzle through it, it's those cunning devils. This is a new product. It is the JLD 5740 AC/DC voltmeter. This will measure up to 500 volts, either AC or DC. Now you have to set all this. Better, it has 2 relays, and each relay can have 2 voltage thresholds set. Now this gets kind of complicated. To set this to bottom balance, basically, my pack, I have to set the AH1 lower than the AL, or a lower one, to a different value. Right now I have this set for 3 volts and 3.2 volts. What happens is it will energize the relay down to 3 volts and de-energize it until it gets up to 3.2 volts. And then it will energize it again down to 3 volts. This is kind of neat, because what it lets me do, we'll later set some different values like 2.5 and 2.75 volts, and it'll drain the cell down to 2.5. When we take the load off of it, it'll start coming back up. And if it comes up above 2.75 volts, it's going to engage it, that relay again. and we'll drain it down to 2.5 volts again. When it reaches that, it'll release it, and it'll keep doing this until the battery fails to creep above the upper volt, the 2.75. And at that point, it's just going to be sitting there with the relay latched at the voltage, at the precise voltage that we want it to land at. And so I'll be able to hook this up, walk away, and hopefully not destroy any batteries. This is a remarkable device. How else could you use it? For example, if you wanted to build a cheap solar charger for some batteries, you can turn this around and do it the other way, where it engages when the batteries fall to a certain level. When they reach a certain upper level, it disconnects them, your solar panels from the batteries. Again, when it falls to a certain level, it will re-engage it, and it'll sit there and cycle between these two voltages forever. That would be a solar charger. How about a charging watchdog? You can have this set where when it reaches a particular voltage, between 0 and 500 volts, that the relay latches and removes AC power from your charger. Now, you set that to a value it's never going to reach, 2 or 3 volts higher than your charger normally terminates at. And so it does nothing. But if your charger fails, or your BMS causes your charger to fail, and you're about to burn down southeast Missouri, 2 volts after your normal termination, this would be able to disconnect you. And so I'm very excited about this little device. For one, it's a pretty good visual, my eyes not being what they were, voltage measurement. It's powered by 9 to 30 volts DC, and separately. And so we can connect this to our 12 volts in our vehicle, use it to measure our vehicle voltage, and put this on the dash. And it's not too, it's a little bit industrial looking, but it's not too obtrusive, and gives us a nice, big, tall, bright indication of what our voltage is. And so we're going to use these a lot more. But the immediate need is to set up a little thing. With the relay on here, we're actually going to drive a ordinary Tyco kilowatt high voltage relay. You all call them contactors, but it's a high current relay. And we connect our load to our cells with some little clippies through that contactor, and use this relay to apply the 12 volts we power the voltmeter with to run the relay as well. And so we can cycle, apply the load and unapply the load until this set of cells rests at exactly the voltage we want it to be at, which we will set for 2.75 volts. And we'll leave this overnight. Tomorrow I'll come in, it'll be 2.75 volts. I'll be a happy camper. So that's the important part. We're going to do these cells into a cast resin block, and you will not have access to them once it's assembled. However, we're going to bottom balance them where they're all at 2.75 volts before charging, and they will never drift out of alignment with each other. A cell could fail, in which case your battery will fail, but lacking a cell failure, I don't expect any of the mythical drift, and we'll treat them just like we do our regular cells. I think this is the individual A123 cells being individual foils in the prismatics, which I don't have access to either. So we're going to build a larger prismatic 40 volt 75 amp hour module. And one of our first orders of business is to take 48 of these cells that we're going to do this from, and we're going to have 12 in series for 40 volts and 4 in parallel for nominally 80 amp hours, but really probably about 75, 76 amp hours. And we're going to cast that into a module. Let me give you a peek of our first prototype of that, and then we're going to walk you through building the second version. This episode of EVTV is brought to you by the Winston Battery Company Limited. makers of high-capacity lithium-yttrium rare earth cells, including the popular 160 amp-hour model featuring cycle lives in excess of 5,000 cycles when discharged to 70%, the longest useful working life of any available battery of any chemistry. A leading battery technology scientist, inventor, and entrepreneur since 1995, Mr. Winston Chung envisions a new world of clean electric power for the dawn of a new era of electric vehicles. For your next electric vehicle design project, contact Winston Battery Limited. Energy for a bright future. Okay, this is going to be your first glimpse of our first rude prototype of a 75-pound block of ice. Actually, it's a battery. This is a module made out of A123 cells. It has two 1.75 by 1.75 inch aluminum terminals with the familiar M8 bolts threaded into it. It's actually multicolored. I used several different resins to cast this, but it's actually cast in urethane resin. Here was the Dascar Plastics RP40, and this was another sort of semi-clear urethane resin, and we poured this in a couple of sections. Our batteries, the cells run this way and this way. One of the interesting aspects of the design is between each two cells there is a aluminum plate. It's 0.030 aluminum anodized. Anodized aluminum doesn't really conduct current, but it does conduct temperature, and by putting it between each two cells, every cell gets a plate on one side, and that comes down. They're folded over a ½ an inch, which is the width of about two cells, and so all of our cells have the plates, but they terminate in feet down here that are bent over. Now I can take a wire brush off some of this resin, and I can access those bare feet, expose them to the air, and they will wick heat out from those cells quite adequately and quite passively, I believe. If I'm wrong, and they don't, we simply build an aluminum box, which we would probably do anyway, to put this in, and those feet making contact with the box on the end will make the box a heat sink that will also help wick it away. If that didn't work, we could always attach some finned heatsink to these feet, and if it needed further, we could put a fan on the finned heatsink. You could even do a chill plate on the ends. Basically, we're going for a passive design using some very thin, lightweight aluminum to wick heat away from those cells and put it down here on these feet at the ends. I've kind of got a mess going here because I did wire it with a BMS spaghetti design certified to burn down a car, but in this case it lets me hook up a cell log to our first prototype and view all the individual cell voltages. And I've got it hooked up to 4 there and to 8 here. We have 12 individual cell voltages. They're very small, but I can read them. They're all 3.34 volts exactly after being fully charged. And so, but I did check them while we were charging them at the end of charge. After zero balancing them, all at 2.75 volts, then we charged them all together, and they were all pretty much within parameters. Had a couple of high ones, and then let them settle, and they're all at 3.34 volts. I probably will not wire the module with this spaghetti wire for the Cell Log 8S. It could be done more neatly, I suppose. When we got the module assembled, we put it in a form, a box, and simply filled it with this resin. I think this is an important part of it. It makes this thing bullet tough. You can literally take this and throw it across the room, roll it across the floor. It won't hurt it. But more importantly, it gets all the moisture and the environment out of our tabs and our spacers and our connections, and seals all of it up quite nicely, and it locks everything in position. As we're going down the road and shaking, this block can slide around, but those modules can't whoop back and forth against those stiffer spacers and gradually develop a wear point and break off or crack or just have wear failures because they're all locked into position in the resin. This is what I call the fly and amber design. This battery should show up 10, 12,000 years from now in a architectural dig where they try to figure out how all these A123 cells got cast in resin like this. And so that's the ultimate module. We're not on the next one going to wire it to monitor the cells, but I did want to have one to see how they were doing, just in case some of these EVDL lunatics were right. I keep revisiting that. It never comes up. I don't know why I do it. Okay, so this is your first look at our prototype of the ice block or fly and amber version of our A123 cell module. It has 48 cells in it. It weighs 75 pounds with the resin. That's 62 pounds of cells. There's 48 cells in it. That's about $1,230 landed cost in our shop for the cells from China. Probably another $150 worth of resin, aluminum angle, aluminum spacers, ultra high molecular weight, nylon rod, and so forth. Call it a $1,400 module. But 3 of these would run Speedster or the Spider very nicely for 40 or 50 miles. And so that's $4,200 for the 3 cells. That would give us 120 volts, 75 amp hours. And so this represents a possible way that you could get into an electric vehicle with more lead-like costs. You can get into lead for $2,500 to $3,000, but this would be $4,000, $4,200. You get the same range. In fact, you get a little better range with this. Much better life cycle with it. And these 75 amp hour cell, 80 amp hour cells, we have tested these hard to 23C. And that means I can tell you with no uncertainty at all that you can put out 1,800 amperes out of these batteries with very little sag, not near the sag we have on the prismatics. These will put out the power. So if you're going to do a 1,000 amp car with a Soliton 1 and a net gain or something like that, certainly a 650 amp Curtis AC50 system, you're apologizing for nothing with this 4 in parallel 75 amp module. It's basically, let's see here, 40 times 75. I would say this is a 3,000 watt hour or 3 kilowatt hour module. 3 of them will be 9 kilowatts. If you're doing 200 watt hours per mile, then you're going to have about 45 miles total range to 100% discharge. To 80% discharge, you'd have a little less than that, obviously. About 36 miles would be And that's going to compare very favorably with what you would achieve with 1,200 pounds of lead. These three batteries together would weigh 225 pounds. They're 75 pounds apiece instead of 1,200 pounds. Instead of lasting 2 years, they'll probably last 10 years. So I think this is a viable and even in some ways exciting turn of events. If the cells just don't go squirrely on us over time, we're going to put them in a car and drive them. But our initial tests, the voltages, the current they'll put out, the capacity, they're all, I think we're averaging 18.68 amp hours per cell. And so if these are rejects or seconds, and we can get them at $20 a piece, a buck a nominal amp hour, we'll take them A123. You just have those Chinese guys send them on over to us. We can make batteries out of them, and I think they'll work just fine. I actually expect the price of these to fall even further. And I think A123 is going to be in a very strange place in that they can't use all the cells they're supposed to be making, and they're selling enough not to go out of business. And with things like the Chevrolet Spark and so forth in the future, they have announced a program with the BMW for the Active E program, but that uses their 32-113 cylindrical cells. Fisker seems to be dying, but VIA is adopting the A123 cells, and so they're going to keep stumbling along. I think they've lost control of their factories in China, and if I can get them for a buck an amp hour, we're going to play with them. You know, it's not as simple and good life as it is with the Calb 180, the simple prismatics that we just strap them up, but these will take us in a new direction toward a lighter, less expensive car that more people can build. Obviously, I think it goes without saying, if you could put 225 pounds of this in and get your car going, if you found that 40 miles was an inadequate amount of range, you do know you can bolt 3 more of these in there, or 6 more of them if you want to do that. It's about the amount of money and time you want to spend. I do find it very labor intensive to assemble these batteries. If we do it for you, they're going to be about $2,000. But you can assemble these doing everything we've done with pretty ordinary tools. You need a bandsaw and a drill press. We're not using a big CNC machine or trying to do something. I mean, guys, I can afford 3D printers and CNC machines. That's not the issue. The problem is, why do a TV show showing me doing stuff you can't do at home? And a bandsaw is within your reach, and a drill press is within your reach. You don't have to have a $40,000 CNC machine to make anything that's in here. And the resin casting, which seems to be the magic, this is unbelievable. It takes 2 minutes to mix and 15 minutes to dry, and you're there. It's actually quite easy, and I think the key to this, in using our aluminum heat-wicking panels, I think we've solved the heat problem quite adequately. You do have another step, basically hone off the resin off the aluminum feet and to expose them to the air, but beyond that, we're pretty much there. And so that's our initial prototype. We're going to walk you through the steps of making prototype number 2 and hopefully doing a neater job of it and winding up with one that doesn't have hair like this one. And perhaps we'll invest in some pigments and make our resin, even if it is in a couple pores, all one color. I'm thinking green, but black or orange, you know, we'll take a look at some different things. Yeah, this could be an automobile-sized battery that we could use. The other thing is, this is not cast in stone, it's cast in resin. We could do this different ways, for example, to make a flat pack to go under a smart car, for example. Not saying we're going to do that, but we might. And again, we have our good old rugged M8 flat aluminum terminals to hook regular cables or straps up to, and this will work just fine. So anyway, stay with us. We're going to show you every step that goes in it. All right then, mate. As they say, hey, down under. To get us back on board, we are working on a module design for some very controversial A123 cells that A123 hasn't really made any official statement about at all. I've been on their website and their news, their media relations, their investor relations, their SEC filings. There's no mention of a gray market in cells and cells being stolen or any problem with cells at all. Mavison has worked out a deal with A123 to distribute their cells to motorcycle racers, and apparently Mavison takes that to mean anyone in the EV community. They had quoted me a price of $65 per cell. I understand they have recently raised that to the quantities we were talking about, I think 100 cells, to $73 a cell, so the price is going up. And they have issued a statement saying that they and A123 jointly were warning people of the dire danger of using any cells that basically doesn't come from Mavison. This is so self-serving as to be absurd. We've made our first prototype module based on a design from a man named Michael Murray, who lives on the far north coast of New South Wales, Australia, a mate. Michael, or Mick as he's known, is 35 years old, and he makes his living mowing lawns. By the way, I was once the wealthiest man in Cape Girardeau by mowing lawns. At age 13, I had 35 lawns. If it rained one afternoon, I was hosed. In any event, Mick has sent us a Blender animation showing a module that I'm quite taken with, and have started to assemble some pieces, and we've been showing you how to make those pieces, and now we're going to do a little bit of assembly and show you how all this goes together. Kelso Manaya is part of a team in Portugal working on a very interesting tricycle vehicle design, kind of an OEM situation, small startup, but I think very interesting. And we got some life in Portugal. Has essentially described the same module layout, and the key elements are that it's tied together using a non-conductive, a threaded rod, and that there are alternate layers of cells maximizing the density of the pack, and I like both of those. Let's see. Our terminals, I showed you cutting them. What we've done since then is bored a 3/8 inch hole quite close to the bottom of the angle iron for our threaded rods, and we have drilled and tapped a hole in the top for our normal M8 1.25 thread bolt. It's a 16 millimeter length, and our Nordlock washer. I've also taken some material, I guess I don't have it up here. It's a roll of tape, high molecular weight polyethylene, and put out, just, you can't even really see it, it's almost clear on the bottom of this where it'll be sitting among the tabs. This will just provide a little insulation, not entirely necessary. And so here, to start our process with our negative terminal of the cell, I have cut about a 9 to 10 inch length of, and unlike our original cell was 5/16, I've gone to some lengths to upgrade this to a 3/8 nylon 6/6 threaded rod. And I have some hex nuts that thread on there. And the first thing we do is take one of our terminals, and we're going to feed this through the mount hole for the terminal. And then I'm going to take, we have a number of conductive spacers here. These are all about 1.75 inches long, 3/4 of an inch wide, and 1/4 of an inch thick. 1/4 of an inch is very close to the 7.5 millimeter thickness of our cells. However, in this process, these things kind of grow and shrink on you. And so we're just going to kind of work it out as we go along to keep them pretty much in line. And so I've also cut a number of .090 6061 aluminum, 3/4 of an inch wide, about 1.75 inches long, and again 3/8 holes in all of these. We also have some insulators. In addition to these are conductive spacers, we also have an insulator, and this is a piece of the white ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene that we're so fond of because it has such great dielectric strength. It's kind of slippery, and it's got good heat resistance. And this one, we bored a hole about 1/2 an inch, a little over 1/2 actually, 9/16 I think is what our nut is. So this will go down over the nut. And so we have a number of these insulators. Our nylon nuts that fit the 3/8 inch rod. The rod comes in 4 or 6 foot length, I think, maybe 72 inches. We just cut a couple of pieces on the bandsaw. And so I'm going to take my terminal and one of my spacers, a 1/4 inch spacer, just like this, and that will be good. And then I've taken an insulating block with a 3/8 inch hole and a nut, and that's going to be my starter here. And so we're ready to start our cell process. Here is our cells. If you notice, you have kind of a bronzy colored tab. That's your copper or your anode, the negative terminal. And this is remarkably similar to the LiFePO4 cells we've been doing. The positive terminal, or cathode, is aluminum, so it's a little bit shinier. And so we're going to take the negative terminal, and we've already drilled our holes in this. We're going to put that there, and we'll feed our other one up through the positive terminal. We're turning our little insulator and our little spacer, conductive spacer, toward the center. And if you'll note, our writing is facing up. If we take our next cell, we want to turn it over where the writing's facing down, and again our negative or anode is on the same side as our terminal, and our positive or cathode is again touching the cathode of the previous cell. And so we have two cells running different directions, one facing down and one facing up, but with their anodes and cathodes together. And that makes two cells. I'm going to go ahead, since we're starting out, we have a little bulk here in the middle, and I'm going to add another cell, this time an alternate cell, again with the writing facing up, pointing toward you there. And we'll fit that. Over our threaded rods, slide them down. Now the rods are threaded. This is kind of a heavy foil we've cut holes in. and it's going to fight you pretty much every step of the way, right down to the bottom where you have to mash things flat. And again, we've still kept all of our anodes over here with our terminal and our cathodes over here. And now we're going to turn this one upside down on this side, facing down, and slide that down. And so we have 4 cells, 80 amp hours, ostensibly, in this alternate arrangement. From this side, you would see this insulator and our terminal, which is missing its bolt. I'll go ahead and stick that back in there just so it doesn't get lost. You can see on this prototype, I have narrowed the terminal where it actually fits between the bodies of the cells, and I don't have to turn those down or try to work them around, so I'm in the middle. I still have plenty of surface area there. And so this is the pattern of our cells. At this point, I'm going to take a very flat piece of 090, and I'm going to put that down over our negative terminal, which has 4 cells connected to it already, and one of our nuts, nylon nuts. Now the key, one of the keys to this design is nylon 66 is not strong enough to clamp all these cells together. However, in this case, we're not clamping all of them together. We're clamping 4 of them, and in some cases 8 of them, along the length of this nylon 66 between the nut on the outside of our terminal and this flat plate here, in this case. And it is strong enough to do that. And so we're going to use a lot of nuts along the way in constructing this battery. And so we'll have lots of little clamping forces arrayed along the length of the nylon rod. I think the 3/8 will probably be a little stronger than the 5/16 was, but the 5/16 was working. But I thought we'd try 3/8 and see how that worked, and I think it'll be a little stronger thread. It's a little coarser thread. Let's say 3/8 18, if I'm not mistaken. Might be a 16 threads per inch. But because of the bigger diameter, it has a little deeper thread cut in it, and it's just a little better. Now this is not really for practice, guys. We're building the array, and so we're going to tighten this down. Again, be careful with your wrench that you don't get it across 2 terminals, but and we want to get our spacer underneath and this one both pretty much lined up. Get her down hand tight, and we're going to go ahead and tighten this nut quite fully, really, as tight as we can get without it starting to slip and break threads. And you'll develop a little bit of a feel for that. If you do slip a thread, it's okay. It'll hold on the next one. It just won't tighten any further. And that clamps it pretty good. And again, you want to check and make sure that your spacers all up and down, and later we'll have more of them than here at the beginning, are straight and tight. And this will clamp our spacers together. I kind of felt that give a little bit, so it's not going to tighten up any further. I'm going to take a piece of our insulator now, and if you note, we had cut that big enough to fit down over that nut. Now, it doesn't fit easily. You kind of have to press it down there. maybe even drive it down a little bit. But it will go down around the nut, and that minimizes your distance. But if you note here, we have got a piece of high molecular weight polyethylene here that is pretty much going to prevent any contact or conduction there on that side. And that raises this up. So let's go ahead and just take a 1/4 inch conductive spacer and put it on this side. And that'll work there. And we're going to go to the next level. Now this is negative to positive. We want to put the negative terminal to the positive here. This is a series connection of 12S and 4P. We put 4 cells in parallel. We're going to go in series. So our positive is going to connect to our negative. So while this cell was the last one we put is face down, so we're going to put this one face down opposite it. And that puts our negative to our positive. And our new positive is out here on the conductor. Obviously, we don't want it to have any contact with our terminal. But our terminal at this point is already pretty rigid, and we do have an insulator here underneath it, and that's in pretty good shape. And our next cell is going to do exactly the same thing, but we'll face this way. It'll be face up. And so we work that again, and it can be difficult depending on your hole. We did drill these 3/8, but they're kind of cranky. And get that mashed down pretty good. Good connection. No real buildup. So we have 2 cells there now. And then we alternate and put another one. Again, the negative side is on this side and connecting to the positive of our first set of cells. And this one's mate goes face up here. And you want to check as you go along that you don't miscount. I had 3 cells at one point in the previous build, and where I thought I had 4. And the way you check that most easily is go back, and at any point you should have 2 up and 2 down per set. And you kind of flip through the writing. I've got writing up, writing up, writing down. Okay, that's 2 cells. Now, we're on this side. We've got the spacer. I'm going to put a full spacer this time. And that is, we've actually got 8 cells connected there. And I'm going to put my nut. And we're going to tighten that down. And it's quite a bit to thread this to the length of the rod. That's why I've got the rods cut off at 10 inches. I was working with foot-long rods. I've learned to cut them off because you do this over and over and over. And so we're going to make sure all of our spacers beneath this are lined up very nicely. And we're going to thread this nut down and use it to kind of clamp all that together on that terminal. And again, this isn't a trial run. We're going to go ahead and tighten this down as tight as we can get it. Again, the nylon is not as strong as steel, but we have to have something that's non-conductive to do this. And this is kind of working out. Part of how it's working out, nylon 6.6 will actually change dimensions in the presence of water. We're not going to have any water because we're going to hermetically seal this whole system with cast urethane resin. And that's going to isolate all the movement of our tabs and our connectors. So whatever we wind up with here, when we lower it into the box and pour the urethane, that's what we live with. And that's a nice, good, tight connection right there. And I'm going to take, again, one of my insulators with the big hole in it and pop that down over that nut. Again, I really don't have those drilled quite big enough, but that may be an advantage because it sure puts them on there tight once I get it on. And there it went on. It does finally slide over, and that will hold that and kind of keep it from swiveling around and so forth, which we don't really want to do. As you can see, this is built up kind of beyond my level of my thing here. And so I'm not going to put a spacer here. We're just going to continue with our cells. Oh, I could put one of my little flat spacers here if you'd like, but even that's not entirely necessary. So at this point, we're going to connect our positive now to the new negative. And this, you can tell pretty easily, this is face down here, and this is face up with the righty. So we're going to be face up over here this time. And our positive goes down over the insulated terminal, and the negative hooks to the previous positive. And we'll continue that pattern all the way through our build until we have cells on the to the very end. This one then would be face down. Again, the negative terminal toward you. And you know, I'm up a little above the body of my cells, so I'm going to keep going without a spacer. This should hold very well, and we'll put this one here. And this one here. Again, we have bottom balanced all of these cells using our new voltmeter from Light Object and a load to where they all came out about 2.78 volts. And that is essentially bottom balanced. What does that do? Well, the cells don't really go bad from over discharge, guys. Believe it or not, you can discharge them down pretty close to 0 volts, and they come back and don't seem to have much in the way of loss of capacity. What damages them is if you reverse them, drive current through them, and that is done by their neighbor. And that is if it's still up on the flat part of the discharge curve and has capacity left, where this one is diving down the steep part, the neighbors can run the weak one into the ground and actually drive current through it in reverse. Once it's reversed, they just really don't ever come back. you can take them down to pretty close to 0 volts and get these cells back. But once they flip and you actually drive current through them backwards, you're kind of done. These cells are going to be, we're not going to have the battery management system that A123 insists you have to have, and that many authorities insist you have to have. We're going to seal it in cast urethane, and it's going to be one battery, and we'll deal with it at that level. But the individual cells are going to be no more available to us than the individual foils are inside each of these cells. Let's see, I always get confused where my insulator goes. My last insulator was on this side, and so we have to put it on this side. I'm going to put, again, we're running pretty good. Oh, I can put a regular spacer, I guess. Well, that's a little aggressive. We'll put one of our flattish ones in here. And that does help us, kind of acts like a washer, helps us put a little pressure on the tabs. And here comes our nut down the shaft. Kind of like watching paint dry again. A lot of what we do here is really pretty boring mechanical work, but we have to do the housekeeping to get to the fun part. I think these A123s may be a little bit of fun. They certainly put out a lot of power for their size, and I think it might be interesting to play with some lightweight cars. Lee Moorhead with the Swallow had one of these cells, and I just wasn't confident we could put that together, but it sure would have kept that little vehicle light if we had been able to. I wasn't even sure we could get the cells in time for that project, but this would be the kind of pack, that would be the kind of project where this pack would shine. But just 3 of these 75-pound cells, 225 pounds, would be a ton of power. Now, it's 9,000 watt hours of storage capacity, which isn't a lot. Most of our cars are 225 or 250. The bigger ones are much higher, of course, as far as the energy required per mile, and so on something. But something like that Cobra, we would have been 5 or 6 or even 700 pounds lighter. That car, which was already had a great deal of performance with a battery pack made out of these and a short range, which is not what he wanted. He wanted a long range, but with a short range would be a monster performer, simply because it's not accelerating all that weight down the road. And these cells, this little 75 amp hour pack, would easily provide the 13 or 1400 amperes that that net gain warp drive industrial is capable of applying to the motor. And certainly the motor's capable, the 11 HV is capable of turning into axial force. And so here we go. Now you can kind of see how this is going, other than just very well, thank you. We have at this point 12 cells. we have 3 series and 4 in parallel. That 80 amp hour nominal is probably really more like 75, but that'll be adequate for this battery. And we're going for 40 volts, so that'll continue. I'll just continue building this up, and we'll bring in an end, show you putting on the final terminal and some other things. I had told you about our thermal thing. You'd be surprised to see how simple it is. This is a piece of very thin 0.030, in fact, anodized aluminum. The black anodize on it makes it non-conductive, which is not terribly important. These pouches are not conductive as they are unless they're scratched through, but the anodize gives us another level of comfort. This thin aluminum will wick heat very quickly, and so we simply set it in here between cells. Now we set this in every 2 cells, and the foot covers 2 cells, and so we wind up with this foot. When we put it in the box where we cast the resin, we will pull out this to about there, to where it is actually in contact with our mold, and that's to minimize the thickness of resin that we have to grind off here to get to, and you can see here I've done it, to get to our metal and expose it to the air. And so at the end, we can grind off that resin, expose this, and this is locked in place. It's locked very securely against, in a sandwich, the cell, and can wick that heat out here. And it's a matter of the faster we get it off of here, the more its wicking capacity. We can do it a lot of levels. Just exposing it to the air would be one level. If we had it in a aluminum box and this touching the aluminum, that would be another. We could put a fin to heat sink against, understand the whole end will be these feet. A fin to heat sink, a fin to heat sink with fan, a chill plate with glycol. There's any number of things, but the module itself is a very simple process of simply these little aluminum shelves to get the heat out here to the end of the cell. So we'll continue this build up and bring you guys back when we're at the end. Okay, we're pretty much at the end. I did print out the notice from Mavison about these A123 cells. I thought you might find interesting. It says, notice from A123 Systems Inc. and Mavison Limited on the supply of gray market cells. Mavison/A123 have been made aware of a number of outlets offering A123 Systems products for sale. These outlets claim to be able to offer vast quantities at very low prices. Some of the outlets for unauthorized A123 products include websites, eBay, and Alibaba, to mention just a few. Working alongside A123 Systems Inc., Mavison has ascertained that these resellers may be supplying quality control failures, intercepted during the recycling process, and passed of as new. Sick. We are concerned for the reputation of our product and services, as well as the safety of those customers who have been led to believe that these cut price channels are authorized and that their supplies are genuine and safe. A123 Systems Inc. does not supply any product other than through authorized channels. These unauthorized traders represent poor value and are supplying a potentially dangerous product. Aggressive steps have and are being taken to stop these activities. They pose a real danger to would-be purchasers and in some circumstances could lead to a catastrophic failure. In the meantime, we would like to remind you that Mavizin is an official channel partner of A123 Systems, Inc., and all of our products come directly from the factory and are subject to the quality control and performance that delivers the best performance, safely and consistently. Please let us know of any sources offering A123 products. We appreciate your understanding and help in this matter. Couple of things I would note on the A123 system website, there is no mention of this at all. And also in A123's latest SEC filing, there is no mention of this. If it's at all material to their business, by law, it's required to be contained in those disclosures. It looks like a Mavizin issue. Mavizin has recently increased the price. They had quoted me at $65 per cell to $73. And we obtained these cells for $20 each, FOB China. Not in vast quantities, but we bought about 360 of them. And so I think we're getting pretty good value. The cells seem to be working quite well. They do not do the 20 amp hours advertised. I don't think that the quality controlled ones do either. In fact, the spec sheet says nominally 19.6 amp hours. Why you would build a 19.6 amp hour cell on purpose and call it a 20 amp hour cell is ludicrous anyway. But why not call it a 19 amp hour cell or a 19.6 amp hour cell, since that's what it is. But they do vary slightly. We're seeing about 18.6 amp hours on average. It kind of depends on how we test them. There's a little bit of slop in there, to maybe 19 amp hours, but they're fine. The voltages are fine. The capacities seem to be fine. The power output is fine. And so I don't know what all the safety concern and this deep agonizing angst over my personal safety is when I'm buying a cell for 20 bucks that they're charging $73 for. So for whatever good that is, you've been warned, and we're about to put the last cells on here. Let's see, I've got my positive here, so we're going to put a negative terminal there, and that is one cell, negative to positive. We'll mash that down kind of. Make sure we're on there straight. This one then would go face down, and it would go the negative to the same side. This alternate configuration that Michael Murray in New South Wales came up with, I think is got really pretty good density. It's something I can assemble and has good volumetric density. Obviously, there's not a whole lot different in the weight, but we don't have a lot in materials here other than just these little squares of spacer. And that went on pretty hard. And here is our final cell. And that makes 48 cells in 12 series groups of 4. We've got all that there. Let me get me a kind of a thick one for here. And I'll put that right there like that. And this would then be our positive terminal. Again, I have a little bit of this ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene tape on the bottom side of it. It's not terribly necessary, but just a little bit of insulation there. And again, in this prototype 2, I've narrowed the terminal a bit. And I'm going to take a nylon nut and follow up here to tighten this down. And on our negative terminal here, I can similarly, really, one of these flat plates will do fine. And I'm going to put a let me see. I need to finish this off with one with a 3/8 hole in it instead of the one that we put over the nut, and then I'll put the nut on the outside, and that'll clamp it down as a final capper. Let me go put a 3/8 inch hole in this, and I'll be right back. Okay, this is my final insulator, and I drilled a 3/8 inch hole, which is the size of our nylon 6/6 threaded rod, instead of the 9/16 hole I'd been using to go inside over the nut on each of our things. In this case, I want to actually terminate this with a clamping force here. And so I've got a little flat conductive spacer, and then one of our ultra high molecular weights, but this time with a 3/8 inch hole, so my nut actually clamps it down. And we will spin these down and tighten them, and that will pretty much make up our module as far as the assembly of the cells and the rods. So we'll tighten this on down snugly. Again, you don't have a tremendous amount of strength with these nylon rods, but they'll put some clamp on it up to a point. Yeah, that's smashed down there pretty good. Let's see what happens with our terminal block. Let me flip this over where I kind of see how this is lined up. I want it to be kind of in between the various tabs, and I'm gonna fold those over just a little bit where they're not rubbing on that terminal. And we just keep tightening that down. Again, our metal spacer down here is doing most of the tightening. And there we go. And that is our cell. Let's see here. We have a negative 34.21 volts or a positive 34.21. and that is that 34.21 is actually a function of being about 2.75, 2.8 volts times 12 in series. At 3 volts, that'd be 36 volts. We'll charge this up to about 43, and it will fall back to a 40 volt pack. And we're going to check that and check our capacity on this module before we continue making it up into our resin block here. As I said, here's 2 of our little heat wicks. We're going to have to make for 48, 24 of these for our 48 cells, and each one will go in between. It'll actually go like this. There'll be 2 cells and then the next 2 cells, and so you can see that these 2 cells have a plate on this side of this one and that side of that one, and so every cell gets one surface on a wick without spending a whole lot on aluminum and weight and so forth. These are 0.030 anodized. We're going to make some of them out of some 0.040 that isn't anodized laying around, but that's what I prefer, is the anodized. And we will do a capacity check on this module now, charge it fully and discharge it fully, and if all that looks good, it will then go into a form and we'll cast it in resin. We'll probably show you that next week, unless Rod gets a move on getting our form ready. This is, we're well on the way to having prototype number 2, and it's looking a little dressier. We're kind of a little pointy end from the sides, but it's pretty regular through the rest of the population there. And we're going to wind up with a thing about 8 inches by 7 inches by 20 inches long. The nylon thread we simply cut off with a pair of dikes or a hacksaw or something. And this is, we did a little different with a 3/8 instead of this one had used a 5/16. I guess the 3/8 is a little stronger. And we got all the nylon stuff from Amazon.com. My order of preference for anything is Amazon.com first, because it's in the driveway by the time I get done typing in what I want and get up out of the chair. And the pricing and delivery is very good. If I can't find it on Amazon, I go to eBay because it's very inexpensive. And from there, if I can't find it there, it's sort of game on the internet with Google. Who knows where you find stuff, but this is worked out pretty good. Again, I'd say the breakthrough for me on this one is the Action Depot, lightobject.com, that little voltmeter that let me hook up a contactor and a load to these and go off, walk off and leave them, and instead of melting down every other one, came back, and it was remarkable. I set the AH to, which stands for the high, but it's the low in this case, for 2.6 volts, and the AL, which is normally the low, but in this case it's the high, for 2.8 volts. And what it does is it energizes my contactor and drains the cells down to 2.6 volts, and then it disconnects the contactor. Well, the cells kind of recover then, and they start coming up, and they'll come up to 2.9, but at the point where they reach 2.8, the contactor kicks in again and takes them down to 2.6. And it'll continue to do this until it fails to reach 2.8, which is usually about 2.77 or 2.78 volts from one of these bounces. So by setting this fairly narrowly, I've got where they come in just under whatever I have in the AL setting on that ridiculous configuration of this voltmeter. The voltmeter is $37.50. And this is, with a contactor and a 0.1 ohm resistor, you have essentially built an automatic bottom balancing machine. You could hook it up to cells, individual cells, and go off and leave it and come back, and they're going to be 2.78 volts. And you can do it overnight. So the that worked out. That was kind of a find. I'd say the biggest improvement I made on prototype 2 over prototype 1 was narrowing the terminals here where they fit a little more cleanly in between the cells. And that's still plenty of room there. We're going to have to, they are sitting down kind of nicely in there. I'm going to have to bolt another piece of aluminum the same size onto here to keep the resin out. And they're actually right at or even below the level of my cells. So I want the resin to come up over the cells, so we're going to have to bolt something onto here to keep the resin off of this surface, and then when we take that off, it'll be a little bit recessed, but you'll be able to bolt to it pretty easily and get a good, again, all your spacers, your terminals and stuff, hit them with a wire brush before you do the assembly to remove the corrosion. There's endless discussion in DIY and so forth about aluminum and copper and dissimilar metals and so forth. There's really no problem with this at all. Yes, it's true that copper conducts better than aluminum, but compared to the tabs on the cells, our spacers and our terminals are a massive overkill for the amount of current we're doing here, even 1800 amps. No special coatings are required. There is no issue of corrosion because number one, we're not going to have any of this exposed. It's going to be in a urethane resin. And what does that mean? You don't want dissimilar metals inside your battery where you have an electrolyte. The electrolyte is what leads to the galvanic action. Any acid or any alkaline really can be an electrolyte for dissimilar metals. Water, moisture, technically isn't, but it's common to find other materials, and so moisture can lead to it. So all of this is going to be sealed in urethane resin. We're not going to have any electrolyte. We're not worried about galvanic action. We have plenty of material for conductivity, and so don't worry about that. The only thing that'll be exposed is the top of these two terminals, and actually the feet of our thermal wicks that will go between the cells. And we're going to arrange those, if you care, from one side, they'll be pointing toward the center, and from the other side, they'll be pointing toward the center as well. And they should meet in the middle. When we cast this, we'll simply slide them out a little bit to where they touch the bottom of our form and fill that with resin in behind them. And so they'll project out a little bit beyond the base of this, and that'll minimize the amount of resin we have on the other side of these feet. And then if you need to use them for thermal wicking, you simply hit it with the best thing I found is a wire wheel. Just eats that urethane resin right off of there, and you can dig down through there and expose that to the air. So that's assembly of the Michael Murray, or as we call it, the Mick Down Under A123 module. And we thank Mick for sending in his blender animation that we showed you last week. And getting us started on this. We've done several prototypes. I'm not averse to doing more. We're just going to be persistent. This A123 thing, the way this company has misbehaved, the dire threats of Mavizin, they've kind of got my undivided attention now. We're just going to import a lot of these and keep making modules until we have something that you can assemble and use easily without a CNC numerically controlled machine, something you can do at home with a bandsaw and a drill press type thing. And I think we're getting there. This is somewhat labor intensive. You're replacing, their very deluxe module, which, by the way, they have in recall at the moment from Fisker, with a much simplified module, but it's going to take some work on your part to put these together at 20 amp hours a piece and $20 a piece. It's not a great bargain over the prismatics. I would rather strap up the prismatics that we get, but this is a path to a half pack that'll put out full power, and I think it's probably important. And so we're going to continue to pursue this and test it, both for the longevity of the cells. We'll probably do some temperature testing, put it in a car, go out and step on it and see what our temperatures get to be with all this cast resin. It's possible that I'm wrong, but it's not likely. I think these little wicks will do fine, and you can accelerate that based on what you put on the ends to take it off. We'll have to see what is necessary to keep these cells cool. I suspect not very much. I was shocked with our earlier, particularly that one that had the plates on the end. Just those aluminum plates on the terminals really wicked away the heat. And we kind of have assembled essentially a big aluminum bar right down the middle of this thing that's going to kind of even it out between the terminals. And then we'll have these wicks pulling it to the edges. And I suspect that we're really not going to have a lot of temperature problems with these cells. I've gone back over the almost ridiculous parameters that A123 puts on people for battery management systems, thermal management. I'm at this point pleased they never sold me any of these cells. I wouldn't want to do all that anyway. It's ridiculous. It's made their modules very expensive and apparently failure prone. They're having difficulties with them, and so we'll see, but I suspect unless these cells are just wildly unstable, and they've given no sign of this so far, everything I've tested with these cells, it looks like a little bitty LiFePO4 cell. The voltages are all the same. The curves are all the same. The temperatures are all the same. This looks like a 20 amp hour version of the cells we've been using. And I'm not recording any anomalies other than as marked in the spec sheet, like discharge to 2 volts. Don't discharge these to 2 volts. You don't need to go to 2 volts. There's nothing between 2.5 volts and 2 volts in these things. And again, we're going to carefully bottom balance them simply because once they're cast in resin, there's nothing we can do. I'm also going to do some testing. We've kind of done this in a couple of cases. I have gone off and discharged one of these cells to 0 volts. It's charged back up and appears to be at full capacity. We're going to demonstrate this. I believe that these cells really are not damaged by a discharge all the way flat. They're only damaged by reverse current from the neighboring cells, and that's what the bottom balancing is all about. They're still on DIY trying to describe what bottom balancing is and what it's about. It's very simple. It doesn't do anything in and of itself. It's to keep one cell from eating the other, and we have actually driven our original car with our original cells, the original Speedster, to a dead stop. It would not go any further. Let it rest for about 5 minutes, turned it back on, drove it another half block, and it stopped again. We let it rest 10 minutes. It drove another half block. You talk about abusing these batteries. We're taking them to nothing, to absolutely nothing, and finally pushed the car up into the garage, put it on a charger. It was kind of a slow charge because it was plugged into 120. And 2 days later, it was back up completely, and we drove the car again 100 miles. It had full capacity. We've taken those cells out and put them in the Ford Edge. They're working to this day. They still put out full power. And so we've kind of demonstrated that, and the alternative, we did the Rich Rudman BMS style balance at 4 volts, and immediately on the first drive destroyed cells. The cells are more a danger to each other than anything else. They actually don't have a failure mechanism on over discharge. It's only in series where you have 2 cells that are not fully discharged and one in between them that is. If you force it into a current reversal, it's the end of the cell. It will not come back. And so, you know, we may do some testing on individual cells to demonstrate that. I'm not saying it's good practice to completely discharge cells, but that's what bottom balancing is about, is simply to ensure that a pack with cells of varying capacities arrive at the fully discharged state at the same time, at the same voltage, after having the same amount of charge removed from them. And we don't care what their state is relative to each other at the top of the charge process. Some of the BMS guys are trying to, well, that's not very convenient. Well, you know, in all the time I've been testing these cells, and believe me, I love them, and I think they have a deep affection for me. They will give up their lives at my bidding. So we have an intimate and emotional relationship, but, you know, in all this time, they have never expressed any concern for my convenience. Not once. I don't think it's cold-hearted of them. I think it's kind of matter-of-fact and pragmatic. But read it as you will, that is their position. They don't care about my convenience at all. So that's the assembly of the A123 pack. I'm a little bit excited by this. I wasn't at first. I did not really relish the concept of building cars by assembling hundreds of cells in a nightmare configuration such as this. I think we can get to something. I like this. I won't say this is our final module style, but I like this one. There's some variations on it that we could do. For example, this is a 12S 4P. We could do a 4S 4P, which would be 1/3 of the thickness of this, or about, well, what would it be? 4 sets, 1, 2, 3, 4. It would be about this thick. And I don't know if you can see that. You know, we might have to do something with the terminals to turn them around where they're not touching each other, but it would give us a very flat module. We could turn then the other direction and have a battery module in resin this thick. Well, we could lay those out in an array to do kind of a pan battery pack or something like Tesla's doing in their car, where the lower frame of the car is actually all battery, a couple of inches thick. So there's some variations that can be played with this game, but I do like this density and weight, and the ratio of cells to hardware is very good. The resin the urethane resin encasement kind of works against us on density and volume. However, I think it's important for several aspects. One is we seal up this connection between the cells, and two, our cells with those tabs naturally flex. They'll flex for a while, but any aluminum or copper that you flex back and forth long enough will eventually develop a crack and break off. That's not really good in a battery pack, and our vehicle is going down the road, and we are thermal cycling. I think by isolating this in the urethane resin, that relative motion is replaced by a motion of our whole ice block here. And so we're isolated in the motion between the cells and the cells as we go down the road. And so I'm particularly taken with the ice block style that we're working with here. And we're going to give up access to the individual cells in exchange for that robust Lego-like ruggedness and weather seal. There's just no way to get moisture into that urethane resin. Okay, we'll show you later about our casting procedure, but it's pretty simple. We build a form, set this in it, mix up some resin, and pour it over the top. And we're going to have to make some provisions on our terminals to make sure they don't get covered up with resin. These actually did. I hit them with a wire wheel, and that cleaned them off pretty good. We may have to go to a little larger angle instead of 1.5 inch, a 2 inch to get this up higher in our next prototype. That's a possibility. Okay, stay with us on the ongoing saga of the A123 module. I think this is going to take us to a good place where a lot more people can make electric cars at a lower expense as part of the process. Ultimately, I think they're going to want the 80 or 100 mile car I've got. But you could get on the road, be driving, and have the EV grin and all the satisfaction of having done it for less money, and add more batteries later. And the price of the cells is likely to come down over time. So I think this is going to be a big play for us in 2012, and I think it's going to allow a lot more of you to get those projects you've been contemplating actually off the ground financially. Stay with us. Okay. We're getting closer.
That's pretty good. I like this iteration. Yeah, that's getting pretty good.
We'll show them the casting technique, which just doesn't add a whole lot. I mean, you can kind of imagine that, but we'll show that next week and have prototype 2 going, and then we'll make the third one. Third one, we're going to start, testing them a little bit, and maybe
that gives us a pack.
It gives us a pack that could run a Curtis type car like Speedster or Spider.
Yep. The annual
550.
Any of the Curtis 1238s, 120 volt. And, nice.
So that's we may do some fooling around with that and see what it's like to drive the Spider with the maintenance switch off, but the new pack, and see how far it actually goes and so forth, which will be kind of a tough test because it'll still be hauling around the other batteries. But that's kind of interesting. Oh goodness!
And we have we've got Lee coming out next week, the Swallow owner.
Lee Moorhead is coming from Texas next week.
Okay,
and he's going to come out and make us finish the Swallow.
So you guys might see next week could get us getting that buttoned up.
Pieces we need to chase down. We got the speedometer in.
Speedometer's in. Once we put the body back on, we wire it. But the throttle, we never did come to a decent
No, I can make it work.
Yeah, we can
It's
make it
not a
work.
problem.
Yeah, and I guess we're going to
But
have to. Nobody knows what went on.
It's the dumbest thing. It's a little 12 to 5 volt converter, but I'm embarrassed for it to be in there.
I know.
But Curtis can't tell us anything.
We exhausted Curtis and Williams.
Can't tell us anything, and we do not know why this does not work. And HPVS not only can't tell us anything, but they insist they sell the pedal.
They sell that pedal is what they're telling me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Not with the low carb treadle, but they're saying it's exactly the same pedal.
And,
so we have no idea. Yeah, there must be
no
just
idea what's going on there, big guy.
No, so next week we should have some updates on the Swallow.
Mm-hmm. And he's bringing a board. He wants to make his J1772 home charger, which he will need because the only way we've got for him to charge the car is J1772 connector.
Yeah.
And that's so that's going to be a big part of it.
Yep.
And there you go, and there you have it. But the Swallow, I think, now we could run into something in testing, but the wheels turn now. I think we're in driving. It's just going to be setting the variables to be comfortable.
Yeah, just for the regen and everything. But other than that, it shouldn't be a lot. And we've
before.
done that. Yeah, we've already done that.
You got to get some seats in it somehow.
Yeah, we'll get the seats. I think we're going to have to put the body on, though.
No, you do have
but
to
we've got the seats. We got the seats from Special Edition, and they're basically the same seats that are in the Spider and in the Speedster. We've got some universal seat mounts. It's more just determining the position, how far back we can put them, how high they need to be, and I think that wouldn't take too long to do. But so we need seats, but other than that, I think we're going.
Cool.
Yeah.
All righty. What else do we have?
I guess we just.
Escalade,
I guess
module, Swallow. That's what we're working on, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't guess we need a report on how you're putting a new buffer together for me.
No, we have some wire brushes on buffer.
We brought some new wire brushes.
Yeah, we've got a couple of buffer stands coming, grinder stands. Other than that, yeah.
They're in the garage. They arrived today.
Yeah, and they saw the stuff. We got the commercial up now for the battery straps, and that should be working out really cool. So if you guys need them, we've got plenty, but maybe not forever.
We've got a Brazilian.
We have a Brazilian. We don't know how many zeros are in a Brazilian, but
we don't even know how many a Brazilian is. But it's an awful lot.
Awful lots. They just kept coming off the truck, off the UPS truck. It's like, stop.
See, they can build you anything you want in China. The problem is they want to do a Brazilian of them.
Right. Yeah. And that's good because that's a long way to ship. That's a lot of weight. Those Chinese are very inscrutable.
Well, inscrutable. Yes.
They're very inscrutable, and they don't want you to buy too few. And NetGain Controls introduces the new Warp Drive Industrial Controller. The Industrial is designed to handle a maximum of 1,400 amps and up to a 360 volt nominal battery pack. The unit's rugged design looks and works great in the automotive environment while protecting it from the elements. In addition to higher continuous currents than the classic Warp Drive controller, the Industrial comes with several major enhancements. Liquid cooling is available and uses leak-free and rugged AN fittings. The Industrial controller has complete isolation on both throttle channels, giving the highest possible immunity from situations that might affect the electrical throttle input. High voltage connections are fully protected underneath the sealed cover. Voltage leaks between vehicle chassis and a battery pack are detected, alerting the user to potential safety problems. Controller settings can be completely customized using the NetGain Controls interface module, which can also log data to an onboard SD card. The controller weighs in at 25 pounds. Visit www.ngcontrols.com to order your Warp Drive Industrial Controller now.
Hello, this is Jack Rickard for EVTV with our first EVTV commercial. We're actually going to sell a battery strap kit, and I thought I'd explain a little bit about why. This is a 55 millimeter strap with M14 holes to hook up our 400 amp hour cells in the Escalade. Unfortunately, it doesn't reach. I had to get some straps that were longer than the one sold to me from China to replace this Australian one that didn't reach. And in order to get it, I had to buy a Brazilian of them. This is the M14-20 20 millimeter bolt that goes with them. And this is a large version that we use with them of our Nordlock washer. I wanted to include, because it's a little more photogenic than what you will probably be using. We have done this informationally in the past. This is a Kalb 100 amp hour cell, very popular. If you look at it, it's a little tarnished on the copper and aluminum, and that's a natural occurrence from its exposure to air. When we're making a connection, we use one of these sanding blocks from Lowe's, and a kind of a 3M sanding block from the contractor's pack, which are, $2.50 a piece. And we knock off the surface of the aluminum and the copper terminal to where they're kind of shiny using that sanding block. And that removes the surface oxidation that immediately starts just from exposure to the atmosphere. Our strap has kind of a rounded side and a sharp edge side, and the sharp edge goes down. It is tinned copper. I don't try to take the tin off, but I again scuff it a little bit to remove any surface oxidation from the and put it on the terminal with the sharp side down. We then use an M8, a 1.25 thread per inch or thread per centimeter bolt with an M8 Nordlock washer, which is coated with zinc. And we put the Nordlock washer on the bolt and use the bolt to secure the strap to the cell. And that connects, of course, to your next cell. I tighten them down with a 4-inch stubby 3/8 inch and a 14 millimeter half-inch will work. Long, deep well. And I do it to what feels tight to me. Now, you don't want to over tighten these because they're soft copper and aluminum and you don't want to strip them out. I've seen all kinds of values. The ones we received from the manufacturer were 38 inch-pounds, which everybody assures me is a little light. We hand tighten them snug, no long tools, and we do use insulated wrenches when working around the batteries. Notice no nail locks, no conductive grease. We like them clean and tight, and we have had such excellent results with this fastening system that we're getting to where we kind of push it. You actually have to exert some force to loosen one of these with the Nordlock because it has a cam between the two portions of that washer. The two outside surfaces are simply toothed, and these are very hard to dig into the thing, but the inside surfaces are actually a cam. And so once you get this tightened down, to loosen it, you have to get it up over one of those cams, and it actually increases the pressure on the bolt when you do. So this has essentially eliminated, that is, stopped the loosening of our connections that we were experiencing from road vibration and thermal cycling. The shipping from Australia had become egregious. They sent us the wrong strap, and so we've had to go direct to China. I got a longer strap, but also one that was quite twice as thick. Since they wanted a Brazilian of them, I'm not going to do a lot of Cadillac Escalades or use a lot of 400 amp hour cells, so I worked out a deal with them where I kind of bought a lot of the strap we do use, which I call the 70 millimeter. It has holes for our 8 millimeter bolt. They're a little elongated, 12 millimeters wide, and they're on 70 millimeter centers. These straps work perfectly with the Kalb 100s, the Kalb 180s, the Thunder Sky 160s, and some of the Thunder Sky 90 and 100s. There's apparently 2 sizes of Thunder Sky 100s out there now, the small and the large. The large ones, the 70 millimeters work. I have also gone ahead and ordered some 60 millimeters. We are offering these to the public in a set consisting of 1 strap, 2 18/8 stainless steel M8 1.25 bolts, length 16 millimeters, and 2 of the Nordlock washers to go with it for $7 a set. Now, a lot of you think that the bent copper straps that come with these cells are free. If you'll check with your supplier, you'll find you get a couple of bucks off if you forgo those. And these simply offer a much better connection. We'll throw in with every order for a limited time only a genuine 3M El Fino sanding block so you can clean your terminals. And this will give you, I am convinced, the cleanest, tightest, and most durable and safest and best performing connection way to connect these large format prismatic cells. And hopefully over time I will be somewhat reduced in my Brazilian 70 millimeters. We have actually just a word of mouth sold about 10 sets of these in the first few days. And so we've gone back and ordered some 60 millimeters that are 60 millimeter centers for the smaller Thunder Sky 100s, and those will be here soon. So we're doing what we're calling the EVTV bat strap kit, and again, it's just a little 5-piece kit, the strap, 2 bolts, and 2 washers, but you don't have to go 3 places then to chase that all down. We send it to you all together in whatever quantity you need for your pack at $7 each plus shipping. The shipping for 55 or 60 of them have been, what, 15, 20 bucks. And we're probably going to charge you $2 for a cardboard box to put it in. But we've already done 10 sets of these. It's going pretty well. I guess we're in the strap business. I think we can get these from China a little bit less price than one of our viewers had these priced here in the U.S. with a U.S. manufacturer. They wanted 18 bucks a strap. We can give you the strap, the bolts, and the washers all together for $7. We'll make a ducat on that and get them to you timely, and I'm convinced that this will be the best connection you can do for your batteries. So order today. Send me an email at jack@evtv.com with your mailing address so I can calculate shipping and how many sets of this you want, and we will try to turn them around timely.
You know, amortize that cost over a lot of units.
A little bit of gossip from the Los Angeles Times. I'm surprised you missed this story.
Which?
Winston Chung.
No, I did miss that. I didn't see it.
Yes, Balcon is about out of money.
No wonder they won't answer my calls.
Well, there's a reason. They may not have telephone.
They might have a telephone anymore.
Winston can't get any money out of China. They're not letting him export money.
Uh-oh. That's not good.
It's not good. He has that MVP Enterprise.
Right, he's got the dudes, the RVs or whatever.
Yeah, they bought the old Fleetwood RV park and facility and everything.
Yeah, out there in Corona or whatever, Riverside
they're
or something.
hung up. Balcon's hung up. He has lost his deposit on the Balboa Yacht Club.
Oh, really?
Yes,
and we stayed there. Remember that time we went down to Newport Beach? We stayed at the Balboa Yacht Club.
Is that right? John Wayne used to drink tequila there.
Yeah, you and we stayed there a long time ago.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. Then we were doing board watch.
There's a lot of things about that period I don't remember. Most of them involving some of John Wayne's tequila.
Yeah, that's right. Ex-wives.
Ex-wives.
There I go again.
There you go again. He had also put down a deposit on the mansion owned by Nicolas Cage.
Oh, really? In Balboa or somewhere in
in
Orange
vicinity,
County or
yeah.
LA? Yeah. Oh,
And
man.
he hadn't lost the deposit on that yet, but if he doesn't close in another month or so, he will.
He'll forfeit. Oh, man.
And so a
No, I
lot
didn't
of
see
Winston
that.
Chung's affairs here in the United States are coming completely unwound. Meanwhile, I have a little side game going, locating people who have actually bought and received Sinopoly batteries, and they are remarkably scant.
Wow. Ooh.
This is shaping up as a marketing thing. They've gone to trade shows. They had this guy, Patrick Wong.
Yeah.
There's a couple, 3 people in Europe who have received the batteries. And the rest of them are like waiting for 60 days and stuff. There's some people who've got money.
Man.
But this is not, this company has not. Meanwhile, Balcon, they don't even answer the phone.
No, they don't answer the phone. I can't get hold of them.
They don't want to do anything about batteries, but they were down to about $200,000 cash at the end of the year, and burning about $4.5 million a year.
Well, that's easy math for a somebody who graduated from a Catholic school to do in their head.
Exactly. Nuns tell us
That's right.
that by the end of January they're completely
out of money. Yeah.
And they do have batteries.
Those are like money if you sell them.
I'd make them an offer.
Yeah, those
but,
are just batteries are just like money.
Yeah, it's like Yogi says, it's cash. It's almost as good as money.
Almost as good as money. That's right.
And so this is the battery world is in a complete disarray right now.
Yeah, it is.
Calb is the only one shipping, and they're clinging desperately to $1.20 an amp hour, which is
and they can, especially with no competition.
And with Sinopoly and Thundersky gone,
they're
getting away with it.
Yeah.
They're good sells, but I think they're a little overpriced at this point. And we're playing with A123s that are
either counterfeit or dangerous or something.
Yes, there was an email from one of the A123 employees that I can't give you his name. It was a private email message, but he said they're either counterfeit or stolen.
Well, what I want to know, though, is how did they get in China?
These are potentially dangerous cells to Mavison, largely because they're $20 instead of the $73 that Mavison is charging for them.
Yeah.
And I can see how that is potentially dangerous.
That is potentially dangerous.
To their line of business.
Yeah.
But in any event, we're having a ball with them. But we're in a very funny phase right now. I feel this is like a calm before the storm.
Yeah.
We're using it kind of as tool building, improving our video and our battery modules and our build techniques and so forth, our tooling around here. It's kind of a rebuild phase, but I think this is like the lull before the perfect storm.
Before all hell breaks loose?
And I'll tell you, a sign posted this was a very warm and even friendly visit from the Iranian ambassador on Charlie Rose this week, which probably
at the plain wooden
probably
table?
means war.
That's right. Yeah.
The plain oak table.
At the plain oak table.
So I feel like we're in the calm before the storm. There's new product on the horizon, and some of the things we've been accustomed to are kind of coming unraveled.
Yeah.
And so,
well, that's the market we're in.
I also did a little bit of a review of IBM's Almaden research facility. They're fairly serious about a lithium air battery and a project they call Battery 500 to develop a battery that would give you a 500-mile range.
Oh, okay.
Let me, if I might, describe the issue. If you take lithium, the metal,
okay,
and use that as an anode, not a cathode.
Okay.
And you took carbon and maybe a little cobalt or manganese, just a little rare earth metals churned in with it to act as a catalyst.
Okay.
But mostly carbon for the cathode.
Okay, for the cathode, okay.
And you exposed this to air, you would observe a remarkable phenomenon first observed in 1999 by some people trying to do a lithium carbon cell. And that is that the battery seems to recharge from exposure to air.
Really?
And that's because its oxygen is actually the cathode.
Okay, wow.
Now there's some problems with this. Lithium is highly reactive with water, so you can't have an aqueous electrolyte. It has to be a polymer electrolyte. And then what does that mean? What is the ideal electrolyte that will be stable and not break down under constant recharging? But to give you a sense of the level of this, Tesla's new Panasonic batteries due this March. And the first production run from Panasonic will be March of 2012. Are about 150 watt hours per kilogram.
Kilogram, okay.
For example. The cells we use 100 to 110. I think they're better, safer, more stable, but they don't have the energy density.
Right, don't have the density, yeah.
A lithium air cell would be on the order of 11,000 watt hours per kilogram in theory.
Moly.
And they've demonstrated some 1,600 watt hours per kilogram.
Okay. That's still pretty good.
Concept.
God.
Basically, you're using oxygen out of the air as the cathodic material, and the carbon is the current collector on the cathode. And so you're not carrying around the cathode. Well, the cathode is twice the weight of the anode in the batteries that we're
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And when it isn't even in the battery, you're at a third of the weight of the battery.
Yeah, wow.
And so the IBM's materials people using their Delta Blue computer
Yeah, that's right.
have been examining materials to replace the electrolyte, the polymeric electrolytes,
Okay.
to solve some of the problems with the lithium air battery.
Okay.
And it's showing promise. In other words, they have cells that give off oxygen when you charge them now.
Okay. Okay.
And consume oxygen.
When you discharge. Okay. Good.
And are doing a pretty
Good.
sound job of it. And that's out at their Almaden Research Center in California. They have the resources, and this is considered a long-term, high-risk project. But they call it Battery 500, and the gains would be sufficiently huge. And we're not talking molten salt type stuff. These are practical. It's really about getting a polymer electrolyte.
Getting an electrolyte.
Non-aqueous polymer electrolyte that will seal off the lithium and not become poisoned itself.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
By exposure to this carbon air cathode.
Yeah.
Basically.
Okay. All right. Well, good for them.
And so it's
Wow.
non-trivial, but not at all impossible.
Right.
It's really a matter of finding the magic material.
Yeah. Just testing enough
Again,
stuff. Yeah.
our future for any of you young people, and most of our viewers are my age and older. But for any of you youngsters that are thinking of a career, material science is what all this is about. It's not about electronics.
No. It's all material science.
There's not going to be any grave breakthroughs in electric motors or controllers, but material science is huge.
Yeah.
So that's about it for this week, big guy.
All right.
I'm Jack Rickard.
And I'm Brian Noto.
We'll see you all later.